There is a huge problem that most veterans face when it comes to filling out their claim. There's a very important form called the Personal Statement, or the VA Form 21-4138, and a lot of veterans are not filling out this form. But can I tell you something? You don't want to skip it. You don't want to rush through it. And you don't want to overload it with information that's not even necessary. And most importantly, you don't want to treat it as an afterthought, because guess what? They can tell by the quality of what you submitted, if it doesn't sound like you, if it's done sloppily, that you are not doing the job that the personal statement is meant to do. So today we're going to talk about the personal statement. I will stay within my lane of talking about cancer, but know that this is very important to every single claim submitted. No claim should be submitted without the personal statement. I am Dr. Camille M. Williams, MD. I am a board-certified radiation oncologist, Lieutenant Colonel retired, former enlisted 54 Bravo, gas, now C. Bernie. I help my fellow veterans diagnosed with cancer, with a denied VA claim from the PACT Act, or a non-presumptive cancer diagnosis that's not yet been submitted, with independent medical opinion, nexus letters, and I also cover DIC. I was enlisted for years and did not know what I was entitled to as a soldier. Now, truth be told, when it was time to get out, I had that proverbial short-timers attitude, so I wasn't thinking or looking for anything regarding what it is I needed to do after my 4 years of enlisted service. But needless to say, nobody sat me down and explained anything. Nobody handed me a form and said, fill this out. It matters more than you think. I found out later, much later, many years later, after time passed, that I can't get back. That is exactly why I do this work now. I don't want you to lose what I lost. Time and benefits you already earned. So let's talk about the one document that quietly makes or break a VA disability claim that no one is really talking about. We're going to walk through step by step. And as I said, though I'm a cancer doctor, the VA, this VA form 21-4138 will hold true no matter what it is that you're diagnosed with. So let's have a chat. First thing, right? What is a personal statement? A personal statement is your chance to explain what happened in your own words, right? You get to talk about your MOS. You get to talk about the exposure, when symptoms started, how your life has changed, right? It does not replace medical evidence. No, it does not. But it helps you organize the story around it. It matters. Your voice matters. And you need to submit your claim with your personal statement talking about how this matters for you. A lot of times when I'm talking to or I'm doing a case for a veteran and I mentioned about their personal statement, because whenever I do the nexus letter, I want to make sure that the personal statement align with what's being discussed in the nexus letter or in the independent medical opinion. And when I ask them, where's your VA form 21-4138, most time I get, what's that, right? Which is the wrong answer. The personal statement, granted, sometimes the form is not noted, but you need to know that you need to submit your personal statement. Now, you can just type it up and submit it, but they do have a form. And if you're a previous military, you know when something needs to be done on a form, do it on the form. Yes, you could type it up, but you want to make sure that's in the additional information. You want to start as noted here. Let me get my highlighter here. You want to start by doing and looking at the statement in support of your claim. You want to start by filling out everything that is asked for here. right? So you just, it's simple stuff, your name, social security, etc. And then you want to start your information in the slot here. This page is just a continuation of showing where it is that the additional information is carried over. And if more space is needed, then you can say, please see attached. But you want to submit the form that they're looking for, not a random page or random pages with the title of personal statement. They have the form. Please, can you do it for me? Please use the form that they want you to use. Now, it may be that because your claim was previously denied or some other scenario, there's another form that they want you to submit at 2010, I think it is. Don't quote me on that. Nevertheless, what I will do is I will give you the direct link below this video as to where you can go to the exact page on the VA page that will talk to you about what form is required and the information that they need. Now, you can't say that you don't know what the form look like. This is the statement in support of claim and is listed down here as the VA Form 214138. So do yourself a favor, get the form, and it's a PDF fillable form, by the way, so that you could type in the information online while you're there or download it and fill it in. So you want to start your personal statement using this form. So now let's get into point 2. Now you know what the personal statement is and what it's supposed to do. Let's talk about the 3 pieces of your claim and how the personal statement actually work. So 1, you have your service record. That's a given. Second, you have your personal statement. And then the third thing is your medical record. Now, the personal statement is there. It doesn't need to be dramatic, long, or sound like a lawyer. It just needs to be clear and tell your story. And what it does, the personal statement that is that it connects both your service record and it connects your medical record. That's the second thing you need to be aware of. So what the personal statement actually does is that it connects everything for you, right? You have your service record, which is where you serve, what you did, the exposure, the injury you experienced. On the other hand, you have your medical record that talk about your diagnosis, the treatment and the tests that were done, the provider's note. And your lived experience is right there in the middle. You tell the story, what your body has been dealing with since you left the military and your diagnosis. Your medical records can show the symptoms. Your service records show duty and exposure, but neither one of those tells your story. The personal statement, that is the only place in your entire claim where you get to speak directly to the VA in your own words. So if you skip it, guess what you're doing? You're handing the VA a stack of paper and hoping they connect the dots correctly for you. My fellow colleagues and veterans, ignorance is not bliss here, right? You deserve to understand what this document is actually doing for you. And that is why I always say that no one should submit a claim without submitting a personal statement. And here we're just simply discussing what's in the personal statement and how you can follow this format to make sure you explain your symptoms and your issue and how it's affecting you correctly. But don't make the mistake of not submitting this and thinking that the VA will do it for you. They may, but why not just speak for yourself? Let's talk about then what belongs in it, right? You need to name the condition. I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2023. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2003 while I was active duty. I was diagnosed with bladder cancer, kidney cancer, whatever the case may be, you have to name your condition. So the service event or the exposure, be specific. There's no need for you to guess. It may have been when I was stationed in Korea, or I don't know, maybe when I was stationed overseas. You want to be specific, not I was exposed to stuff. Talk about the actual event. Was it some burn pit? Was it what were you exposed to? Was it because you worked in the motor pool and you had to use degreasing? Were you in the Air Force and you used certain chemicals as a technician on the plane? Were you on the ships and where you were? There were asbestos. You want to be specific about what you were exposed to, location, duty, etc. Then you also want to talk about the symptoms and the timeline. When did this start? How has it changed since you left service? Walk it forward in time. In some cases, though, like some of the nexus letters and the independent medical opinions I do, or the DIC, no symptoms were seen while they were on active duty. But this is what I've found out over the past years. There are some medical records that do have linkage or does show early signs of some disease process. And because they were handwritten, there are some medical reviewer who are not able to understand the handwriting, or some folks try to submit and trying to decipher doctor's handwriting. That can be difficult. And there are some cases I review in looking at older medical records where the doctor actually wrote information, and I was able to use that to say, hey, the symptoms and the timeline started when this veteran was actually active duty. For example, if it's a bladder cancer, maybe there were issues where you had stones, or you had blood in your urine, or there were trace blood in your urine in some lab. So there sometimes are some trace of information, but that takes meticulous review of medical records while you were active duty. So some things you don't need to know about. That will be in the nexus letter or will be in your IMO. But if, let's say, you went on sick call, you could say, when I was active duty in 1998, I went into sick call because I had to pass a stone or something like that. Then you can say, I had symptoms back then. But if it's not related, then don't put it in there. And that's why I like to quickly review personal statement for whomever I'm doing a nexus letter or independent medical opinion for, to make sure that it's in the veteran voice. You'll want to walk it forward. When you approach to where you are today, you want to talk about how you are being impacted. Don't just write, oh, my back hurts, right? You want to write, my back pain prevents me from sitting for more than 20 minutes. Be very specific. Since I had breast surgery, it's been more difficult for me to do my yoga stance. Be specific. Since I've had prostate surgery, I've had issues with erectile dysfunction. Be specific. However, I was military, I was an oncologist at Walter Reed, etc. And there will be documentation if stated that you had erectile dysfunction before your prostate cancer, right? So you just need someone who's in oncology to help you walk through the steps about how to be specific about certain things. And that, again, is why I review the personal statement to make sure that everything is aligned and there is nothing that can be misconstrued. Yeah, all right? Then the point to your evidence. Right? Point to the VA straight to where the proof live. Which records, which dates, which provider notes back up what you just said. That doesn't need to be in detail. That's where the nexus letter will fill in for you. But if you were diagnosed with a cancer, say, I was diagnosed with lymphoma while I was active duty. I was stationed out in Fort Lewis at Madigan Army Hospital, if that's what the name still is today, or when I was at BAMC. I know it's not BAMC anymore. It's like SAMC in San Antonio. You can just be specific of where you were located at the time. So point 3, these are the 5 parts that needs to be in your personal statement. regardless of what it is, cancer, sleep apnea, breathing issues, back pain, you need to list these out in this format. Okay? Point 4. We want to talk about some of the things to absolutely avoid. Self-diagnosis. Do not try to diagnose yourself. Just describe your experience and let the record show the diagnosis and everything else. Be aware that if you had a biopsy and the biopsy is benign, benign means non-cancerous. If you have a test for a presumptive diagnosis and the test was negative, you cannot claim that diagnosis. You need to have that diagnosis in your medical records, right? So you need it to be documented. Saying that you have a biopsy for liver cancer and it was a benign hematoma, you cannot claim liver cancer. I know. Yes, it has occurred. And that is exactly why I have the VA strategy consult, so that no one is paying me for something where there is not a diagnosis. I know, it happens more frequently than you think. The other thing is that when you're writing your letter, your personal statement, don't ramble. One statement, one condition. So do not write a personal statement and talk about your PTSD and then also talk about your breathing issues and your sleep apnea and your low back pain and your broken bones and all the diagnosis that you've had since you've been in the military and you went on sick call. No, it needs to flow. No rambling. And here's the big one. Let me turn over here out. This one here. Do not vent about your frustration with the VA. And I've been trying to submit this for a while and no one got back to me. Please don't do that. Know that the folks who are working there, they're trying their best to get back to you as soon as they can. I do not work for the VA. I do not represent the VA. I am not a credentialed VA representative. I work strictly in the medical field and strictly on cancer. But I have met VSO and VFW and worked with lawyers, etc., and they are trying to push things out as quickly as they come in. But it's difficult. Not enough people doing this work. But I hear they're getting better, so that's great. They're getting better. But don't vent your frustration in your letter to the VA, right? I've had a few that I did where I had to say, okay, nope. You don't want to say that. Don't want to say that. So there's certain things that I align to make sure that you're just really nice to the folks. Just be nice. Just state the facts. And copying generic templates word for word. Now, you want to tell your story, your voice. I know in the age of AI, folks are plugging stuff into AI and stuff, and you don't want everyone's personal statement to sound like yours. So I would recommend that you write your template. Maybe you need some grammatical error corrections or the flow, etc. Then okay, but it needs to be your voice. It needs to be your experience. It needs to be what you go through. So you just have to take some time, do some typing. I do review some of these. Again, as I noted, whenever I do a nexus letter or independent medical opinion, I do review the personal statement to make sure everything aligns and that it is clear. All right, so here are the key takeaways. Your service record shows where you were. And that's all it does. It just shows them where you were. You may or may not fall within the guideline for the PACT Act or not. That's okay. Your service record shows you where you were. Your MOS may be that kind of job that exposed you to certain type of toxins. And if that's the case, then you know where to come to find me. When it comes to toxins, that's what I do. In cancer, that's what I do. It's like a little case. I love doing those things, right? So your service record shows where you were. Your medical record shows what was diagnosed. But your personal statement, that explains how you were affected. And that's what they want to know. Again, final example, be clear. Don't say I was exposed to stuff. I was exposed to Agent Orange when I was at this place, or I use this chemical to decrease the airplane, or I was exposed to asbestos on my ship, or I was in the motor pool. You want to be specific in that, okay? You want to be specific about your exposure and also about your symptoms. I can't sleep at night because, or I can only sit for so long before I have to stand up. You have to say how the symptoms are affecting you now. You were diagnosed with cancer, but now that the cancer treatment is finished, you're having neuropathy where you're having issues in your fingertips, your toe. How does that affect your daily life? I hope that was helpful for you. All right, so next step, please share this information with a veteran that you're working with on your claims right now. And if you need to have a VA case strategy consult, you may find me at q4cd.com. I also help veterans with their medical documentation, getting it together for oncology. That is for those who are diagnosed with cancer. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. I hope this was helpful for you. Please do subscribe so that every time I publish, you will be notified. Click that bell. Thank you for taking your time, for spending it with me here today. I hope you learned something. Thank you for your service. And until next time, you take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.